Welcome to the session on Indian philosophy. Today we discuss theories of error or Khyativada. Theories of error or false cognition. Every school of Indian philosophy developed its own theory of error made to fit its epistemology and metaphysics. Theory of error or Khyativada is always an important part of a system's theory of knowledge. Khyati stands for knowledge, hence Khyativada may mean theory of knowledge. But then how can the theory of knowledge turn out to be the theory of error? It may be said that since knowledge in Indian philosophy includes both true as well as false cognition, and then Khyativadas are discussed only in the context of falsity or Brahma. Each theory therefore turns out to be a view about the nature of the cognitive conduct of the so-called erroneous knowledge. There are mainly three theories of false cognition or Khyativada based on the nature of the content of error in Indian philosophy. They are Satkhyati, Asatkyati and Anirvacaniyakhyati. Satkhyati. Satkhyati theories are those which hold that the content of error is somehow real. In the case of rope snake illusion, the snake which is the content of error is not unreal. Satkhyati includes 6 theories. They are Akhyati of Prabhakara Mimamsa and earlier Sankhya, 2. Viparidakhyati of Bhatta Mimamsa, 3. Anyadakhyati of Nyaya, 4. Yadharthakhyati of Ramanuja, 5. Sadasatkyati of later Sankhya and Jainism, 6. Atmakhyati of Yogacara Buddhism. 2. Asatkyati. Asatkyati theories are of the opinion that the content of error is unreal, that which is being perceived, the illusory snake, is really non-existent. Asatkyati includes 2 theories. They are 7. Asatkyati of Madhyamika Buddhism, 8. Abhinava Anyadakhyati of Madhva, 3. 9. Anirvacaniyakhyati. For Anirvacaniyakhyati, the content of error is indefinable. The snake is neither existent since it is negated by knowledge of the rope, nor non-existent since it is perceptually presented and so is indescribable as being either. Anirvacaniyakhyati is held only by one school, and that is Advaita of Shankara. 1. Akhyati of Prabhakara Mimamsa and earlier Sankhya. Akhyati means non-apprehension. The theory of Akhyati is also at times named as Vivekakhyati or Bedagraha or Asamsargagraha or Smriti Pramosha. The theory is primarily advocated by Prabhakara and his followers in Mimamsa. It is also said that the earlier Sankhya view of error remarkably resembles Khyativada. Error is conceived as a case of omission or non-observation when an individual mistakes a snake for a rock and makes a judgment, this is a snake. The error lies in the non-apprehension of the non-relation between the perceived this and the remembered snake. There is no error in respect of the object which is seen, nor in respect of the snake remembered. The error is in one's failure to realize that they are non-related as subject and predicate. Thus, error is due to incomplete knowledge and arises from non-discrimination. Prabhakara's view is found in his commentary called Brihati on Shabaribhashya. Prakarana Paniga is another important work of the Prabhakara school which elaborately discusses the doctrine of error. Prabhakara, in strict accordance with his view of intrinsic validity of knowledge, does not admit error in the logical sense. All knowledge is valid in itself. So, experience is always to experience validity. Error, therefore, is only partial truth. It is imperfect knowledge. All knowledge as knowledge is quite valid, though all knowledge is not necessarily perfect. Imperfect knowledge is commonly called error. Prabhakara is true to his realistic position in maintaining that knowledge can never misrepresent its object. Error is one of omission only, not of commission. It is only non-apprehension, not misapprehension. It is not a unitary knowledge, not a single psychosis, but in fact it consists of two psychoses. It is a composite of two cognitions which really fall apart unrelated. The two cognitions are, for example, in the case of shell-silver illusion, the cognition of shelf as it is presented before and the remembrance of silver. The error is due to mere non-distinction between the two cognitions and their objects. Hence, this view of error is called akhyadi or non-apprehension. Error arises when we forget the fact that instead of one cognition, there are really two cognitions denoting two separate objects, and further forget the fact that these two cognitions as well as their objects are distinct and unrelated. In all cases, error is due to non-discrimination, which means non-apprehension of the distinction between two cognitions and their objects. It is called Vivekakhyati or Vedagraha or Asamsargagraha. 2. Viparithakyati of Kumarila Bhatta. The theory of error propounded by the Kumarila Bhatta Mimamsa school. Error arises when an object appears otherwise than what it is. The object of error is held to be real, and it is the identity of its appearance with its basis which is unreal. Both Prabhakara and Kumarila, though are in agreement with each other in regard to the self-validity of knowledge, yet advance opposite views regard to error. The view of Kumarila Bhatta and his followers is known as Khyativada. The original exponent of this theory of error is Kumarila, whose views are found in his Slokavartika, a commentary on the Tarkapada section of Shabaribhashya. Kumarila agrees with Prabhakara in maintaining the intrinsic validity of knowledge. It recognizes error as such and regards it as misapprehension and not as mere non-apprehension. He further holds that error is a single psychosis, a unitary knowledge, and not a composite of two imperfect cognitions. Error is not only of omission but also of commission. Kumarila agrees with Prabhakara in maintaining that in the erroneous perception of this is silver, two things are present. The shell is perceived as the bereft of its shellness, and silver is imported in memory merely as silver bereft of its thisness on account of the qualities of whiteness and brightness which are common to both shell and silver. But he differs from Prabhakara and maintains that there is a positive wrong synthesis of these two elements perceived and the remembered, and that error is not due merely to the non-apprehension of the distinction between them. The two elements are not united in fact, but they appear to be so in error. Error is partial misrepresentation. Error is not akhyadi or non-apprehension, but viparithakyat or misapprehension. It is not due to non-discrimination between two imperfect cognitions. It is due to a positive wrong synthesis of the two imperfect cognitions, which, though in fact unrelated, are welded together as a unitary knowledge in error. Thus, error becomes a single psychosis, a unitary cognition, a positive misapprehension, and therefore one of commission. In the shell-silver illusion, the shell is misperceived as silver. Error is a wrong apprehension of one object as another object, which in fact it is not. This misapprehension arises due to some defect in the causes of knowledge and is set aside by a subsequent sublating knowledge. 3. Anirvacaniyakhyati of Nyaya. The theory of error propounded by the Nyaya school. The object of error exists, but not in the place where it is perceived. The this of error is proximate, but the object of error is elsewhere. Error consists is wrongly synthesizing the this with the object of error. The Nyaya account of error has been expounded by a galaxy of thinkers beginning from Gautama. Gautama has not explicitly mentioned the term Anirvacaniyakhyati anywhere in his sutra, but there are references about wrong judgments. The term Anirvacaniyakhyati perhaps first occurs in Vachaspati's Nyayavartika Tatparyadhika, a gloss on Udyodhakara's Vartika. Kumarila's Vivaridakhyati is much similar to Anyadakhyati of the Nyayavaisheshika. The Nyayavaisheshika also believes, like Kumarila, that error is due to a wrong synthesis of the presented and the represented objects. The represented object is confused with the presented one. The word Anyati means elsewise and elsewhere, and both these meanings are brought out in an erroneous perception. The presented object is perceived elsewhere and the represented object exists elsewhere. The shell and the silver are both separately real, only their synthesis is unreal. The shell is misperceived as silver which exists elsewhere. Example in the market. The Nyaya Vaisheshika, like Kumarila, recognizes the subjective element in error. Error is due to a wrong synthesis of the presented objects. Gangesha observes, a real object is mistaken as another real object which exists elsewhere. 4. Yadarthakyadi of Ramanuja. The Vishishtadvaita theory of error is sometimes called Satkyadi, a theory of error in which the content of error is in some sense or other real. All the systems except the Madhyamika and Advaita and Dvaita fall into this category. The Atmakyadi of Yogacara, the Akhyadi of Sankhya and Prabhagara Mimamsa and the Yadarthakyadi of Vishishtadvaita. The Vishishtadvaita theory of error is discussed by many exponents of the Vishishtadvaita school, and all of them in common hold that all judgments are true. The view of error in earlier Sankhya and in Ramanuja, technically called Satkyadi, is similar to the view of Prabhagara's theory with some modification, and his theory is called Yadarthakyadi or Satkyadi. This theory is also known as Akhyadi Samavalita Khyadi, which means non-apprehension cum apprehension of reality. Error is only partial truth. Cognition as such is never invalid. Ramanuja goes to the extent of saying that the shell appears as silver because there are some particles of silver in it, and explains this by his interpretation of triplication. All apprehension is real. Error is right so far as it goes, only it does not go sufficiently far enough. The distinction between error and truth therefore is not logical but only practical. 5. Sadasatkyadi of later Sankhya and Jainism. The name Sadasatkyadi means apprehension of the real and unreal object. For them, one thing can be considered real and unreal under different conditions. The Sankhya Pravachana Sutra is attributed to Kapila. It expounds the doctrine of Sadasatkyadi, which means apprehension of the real and the unreal object. Error is here regarded as misapprehension and is held as due to a wrong synthesis of two cognitions which are separately real, though the synthesis itself is unreal. In the illusion, this is silver. The silver that appears in consciousness is real because it exists in a jeweller's shop, and it is unreal because it is wrongly ascribed. The Sankhya concludes that an illusion is the apprehension of an existent entity and a non-existent entity. Jainism gives a typical example to this fact. A person can be father for his son and it is real, but the same person need not be so for another. In the illusory perception, this is silver. Silver is real as existent in the silversmith's shop, but it is unreal as superimposed on the shell. So, it is the cognition of the real and unreal. 6. Atmakhyati of Yogacara Buddhism. The theory of error of Yogacara Buddhism. Error is said to consist in mistaking what is internal to be external. All determinates cognition of objects are erroneous as there are no external objects at all. What exists is only cognition idea. The object of error is real, but not as existing outside in space. It is real as a mode of the mind. The Vaibhashika, the Sautraniga and the Vijnanavada are known as the advocates of a widely known theory of error, that is Atmakhyati. However, this theory of Atmakhyati is explained differently in each of these schools. The Yogacara Vijnanavadins hold that an illusion is the apprehension of a momentary subjective cognition as an external object and thus advocates the doctrine of Atmakhyati. The Yogacara does not believe in the reality of external objects, but reduces them to the internal cognitions of the percipient mind. According to him, an illusion is the superimposition of the form of cognition on the so-called external object which is real, for the real is only the momentary cognition. Thus, the Yogacara school interprets illusory perception as the apprehension of the subjective cognition. 7. Asatkyati of Madhyamika Buddhism. Asatkyati or Shunyakyati is the theory of error held by the Madhyamika Buddhist school. According to them, the object of error is totally non-existent. The error is the cognition of a totally non-existent object as being existent. There is no substrate whatever for delusive cognition, and the sublation of these delusions is without limit. Asatkyati or Shunyakyati, which is often ascribed to the Madhyamikas. Khyativada means that in erroneous perception there is merely the perception of something which is unreal. In the shell silver illusion, the silver that is perceived is neither real as something external nor even real as something internal. Therefore, it is absolutely unreal. If the silver would have been externally real, then there would have been merely an internal idea, then also there would have been no explanation with regard to its external manifestation. It is as such asat or shunya. Thus, the erroneous perception is declared to be non-being's apprehension. One becomes aware of the non-being of silver only when the erroneous perception is sublated by the valid perception. 8. Anirvacaniyakhyati of Advaita. Dvaita theory of error. It is a combination of asatkyati in that the object of the erroneous cognition is held to be unreal, and of Anirvacaniyakhyati in that the object of error appears as otherwise than what it is. Thus, what is seen in erroneous cognition is unreal, but it is seen in a substrate which is real. This theory is a revised form of Nyaya theory of Anirvacaniyakhyati. Thus, the name Anirvacaniyakhyati Madhva defines an illusion as an apprehension of a non-existent entity. He regards an illusion as the apprehension of one thing as another. In the illusion, this is silver, non-existent silver is apprehended in a nacre which is present to the visual organ, or non-existent identity of silver with such a nacre is apprehended. Madhva's doctrine is not identical with the Nyaya Vaisheshika doctrine of Anirvacaniyakhyati. The Nyayika holds that in the illusion this is silver. A nacre is misapprehended as silver which exists elsewhere, for instance in a jeweller's shop. Madhva does not deny that silver existing elsewhere, which was perceived in the past and which left an impression, is remotely responsible for the illusion. Madhva denies that the silver that is perceived in a nacre is existing elsewhere, which the Nyaya Vaisheshika asserts. The silver that exists elsewhere cannot in any way assist the apprehension of it here. Hence, Madhva's doctrine of illusion, Anirvacaniyakhyati, and draws a subtle distinction between it and the Nyaya Vaisheshika doctrine of Anirvacaniyakhyati. 9. Anirvacaniyakhyati of Advaita. The Advaita as a distinct philosophical tradition was its origin mainly to the writings of Shankara. According to Shankara, any inquiry into the knowledge of Brahman must necessarily be presupposed by a clear analysis of the concept of error, what he calls as adhyasa. It is sometimes pointed out that Shankara does not clearly advocate the classical Advaita theory of error, that is Anirvacaniyakhyati, which is rather coined by the post Shankarites. Shankara raises the problem of knowledge and error in his well-known Adhyasa Bhashya. The Advaita Vedantist holds that an illusion is the apprehension of an indefinable object. It is neither real nor unreal, nor both, but indefinable. If it were real, it would not be sublated. If it were unreal, it would not produce an immediate apprehension. It cannot be both real and unreal, since the two contradictory attributes of reality and unreality cannot exist in the same thing. For perceptual error to take place, two main factors are necessary. There must exist a substratum on which the false is superimposed, and there must be a defect called ignorance. This ignorance projects the false object upon the substratum. In the case of illusory perception, we have two modes, one of thisness and the other of apparent silver. The former is correct presentation and the latter has memory for one of its causes. The silver is supposed to be out there for the time being as Khyativada Parinama. The same consciousness unifies the two modes, one true and the other false, and so error arises. Hence, the Advaitavadin holds that indefinable silver is produced at the time and place, produces the illusion of silver, and lasts as long as the illusion lasts. Indefinable silver has illusory reality as distinguished from empirical reality of things in the world and ontological reality of Brahman. This theory of error is based on the Advaita concept of worldview. The Brahman is real, the world is unreal, but at the same time the world is not unreal as the square circle is. The world is perceivable, it has a substratum Brahman. Creation of the world is compared to a magician making a flower using his magical ability. In the same way, Brahman creates the world using his power Maya. When the ignorance is removed, the reality will be realized. The treatment on the erroneous cognition is quite elaborate in Indian epistemology. The different theories of error or Khyativada are only debating about the nature and status of the object of the erroneous cognition. For instance, when the shell is misperceived as silver, is it real or unreal, or both real and unreal? Or is it neither real nor unreal, or is it real not in the sense of external object but in the sense of idea? The dispute among various theories is precisely about the being of the object of erroneous cognition. Now let us summarize. Every school of Indian philosophy developed its own theory of error made to fit its epistemology and metaphysics. There are mainly three theories of false cognition or Khyativada based on the nature of the content of error in Indian philosophy. They are Satkhyati, Asatkyati and Anirvacaniyakhyati. The dispute among the various theories of error or Khyativada is precisely about the being of the object of erroneous cognition. There are few assignments for you to work out. 1. Explain the theory of error in Indian philosophy. 2. Discuss Satkhyadivada and Asatkyadivada. 3. Critically evaluate Anirvacaniyakhyadivada. 4. Differentiate between Atmakhyadi and Yadarthakhyadi. 5. Elucidate Vibridakhyadi with example. There are few references. 1. C.D. Sharma, A Critical Survey of Indian Philosophy, Motilal Banarsidass, New Delhi, 2003. 2. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, Indian Philosophy, Volume 1 and 2, Oxford University Press, 2008. 3. The Theories of Error in Indian Philosophy, Vijayanandakar, Ajanta Publications, 1978. 4. Indian Epistemology of Perception, Judanath Sinha, Sinha Publishing House, 1969. Thank you for watching this program. See you next time. Until then, bye.